And I would like us to talk about, in your opinion, what are the current myths that need to be changed regarding nutrition? In your experience, what is it that really needs to be reevaluated? And what is certain from a scientific point of view?
Correct? That is one part because I could tell you, Jorge, that there are as many myths as there are human societies. Or because, of course, when you see, for example, how diet can be influenced by religious beliefs, they can be influenced by trends. Let's say when you go to the East, when you go to the Middle East, you see different ways of eating that are often strongly rooted in cultural patterns. So that is a clear aspect to take into account. But for example, some things can be interesting. Many times patients tell you when we treat as a consequence of dysmetabolism, for example, or meta-inflammation, to reduce carbohydrates and not to eat sugar, etc. I remember a few weeks ago, doctor, but the brain needs sugar. And that is when we start to make the patient see how today it is perfectly clear that excess, for example, sucrose and excess simple sugars and excess food, high in carbohydrates or high glycemic load foods, etc., it is more harmful for the brain to the point that today we are talking about Alzheimer's, like type 3 diabetes. And if you search on the internet for type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's, so that is an important point. But you also find, for example, the patient where you suddenly hint that the diet needs to include more vegetables, or if they have a very particular situation, I can say, okay, I'm going to have you vegetarian for a month. The patient says, oh, doctor, but vegetarian diets are not healthy because one can end up with deficiencies, etc. And that is when you can then say, okay, that is a half truth. If you have the correct information and know how to combine the different plant-based nutrient carriers, you can create a perfectly adequate diet, right? Because remember how they always showed us that plant protein was of poor quality and that animal protein was the good quality protein. Well, that is very relative because a very famous nutritionist named Francis Moore Lappe published many years ago a book called Diet for a Small Planet, in which he said that we could not continue to think that the basis of human nutrition had to be meat because, for example, to produce 1 kilos of beef, that cow has to consume approximately 12 kilos of plant protein, and that, for example, to produce 1 kilos of milk, it would be 1 kilos of plant protein, and to produce 1 kilos of poultry meat, it would be 2 kilos of plant protein. That is to say, showing how at a certain point, if we were to base the entire diet absolutely on the consumption of animal protein, there would come a time in a human society that grows Malthusianly and where we have more and more people that when I was eating a good piece of steak, about 10 or 15 people on the planet were going hungry. And that book is beautiful because it not only makes us think about health aspects, but also about social aspects, right? And in the aspects of how we need to seek food that allows for the equitable situation of all human beings on this planet that we are sharing.
Yes, and in that line of thought, breakfast. To what extent could we say that breakfast is really the most important, the most important considering everything we know about intermittent fasting and all that? What is your opinion on that?
I think that at this moment we are complicating our lives a bit, guarding concepts like intermittent fasting, which is undoubtedly very important and valuable. But what I tell my patients is that we cannot live on intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting can be adopted as a therapeutic system, just like we do Buckinger fasting, or like we do a ketogenic diet, or like we do a paleo diet. They are forms of diets in which a particular type of food is emphasized, such as the keto diet, which gives importance to fats and is very valuable in cancer, which is very valuable when I need to recover metabolic flexibility in a patient addicted to carbohydrates and things like that. But I also cannot keep them on a strict keto diet all the time because I will alter the gut microbiota, and it turns out that the bacteria in the gut need diversity. And that's why, let's say, with Alejandro, the chef at the clinic, in the end, we take the patient after we have done keto or paleo or whatever, we take them to the challenge in which we then rotate, some days richer in protein, other days richer in fat, and other days richer in carbohydrates. That is, we rotate it to maintain the microbial diversity of the gut, which is undoubtedly, as we well know, determinant in health. So I would think that what happens sometimes if you said it at the beginning of the question, is that we end up creating almost strict ideas about how to eat. So, what one has to look at is the patient's metabolism, because it is not the same if they are a sympathetic tonic or a vagotonic. It is not the same if they are a fast oxidizer or a slow oxidizer, which gives us the four basic constitutions. Where, for example, from conventional medicine, I can talk about ectomorphic, mesomorphic, endomorphic. From Ayurvedic medicine, I can talk about Pitta, Kapha, and Vata. And from homeopathic constitution medicine, I can talk about sulfuric, phosphoric, carbonic, and I am talking about the same thing. Those different forms of organic constitution cannot be fed the same way because no one is the same as anyone else. And now that genetic polymorphisms appear and the concept of nutrigenetics and nutrigenomics emerges, then it is more when we realize that we almost have to reach a personalized nutrition. And today, when doing a very complete screening, it can cost us around $101 for a well done screening. So that is a very big advantage because with that analysis, one can give exact recommendations based on genomics about what you can, what you should not, and what you can occasionally or freely eat according to your genetic personality. Let's put it that way. In this way, nutrition is increasingly becoming more personal and not based on styles or dietary models.